If your blood sugar has been creeping upward, every time you check your health results, you are not alone. Many people first notice the problem not when they are diagnosed with diabetes, but when the numbers begin to shift little by little. Fasting blood sugar starts to look less comfortable. A 1C no longer stays where it used to. Energy becomes less stable. Sleep feels lighter. Hunger becomes harder to control in the evening. At that point, many people become anxious and try to fix everything by eating less. They skip meals, reduce rice too aggressively, avoid entire food groups, or depend on very small portions that leave them unsatisfied. But blood sugar is not managed well by fear alone. It responds to rhythm, timing, balance, consistency, and the overall condition of the body. And among all daily meals, dinner often becomes the turning point. Dinner matters because the body is not the same in the evening as it is earlier in the day. During the daytime, the body is active, moving, using energy, and processing food in a more dynamic way. By evening, the body is gradually preparing for rest. Activity slows down, muscles are used less, digestion can feel heavier, and the body becomes less ready to handle a large load of fast-absorbing carbohydrates. This means that the exact same plate of food can feel very different, depending on when it is eaten. A meal that causes little discomfort at midday can feel much heavier at night. A bowl of rice, noodles, bread, or sweet fruit late in the evening may stay with you longer, affect your sleep, and leave you with a higher fasting number the next morning. That is why many people who say, "I do not eat that much, so why is my blood sugar still high?" often need to look closely at the evening. The evening meal is also tied to emotion. Breakfast is usually practical. Lunch is often routine, but dinner becomes relief. It is the moment when restraint loosens. After a long day, appetite is stronger, tiredness lowers, self-control and the desire for comfort rises. This is why many people eat more at night than they intended. They may do fairly well all day and then overeat in the evening, not because they lack discipline, but because the body and mind are both tired. A full dinner can briefly feel calming, yet that heavy comfort often comes with a cost. Post-meal sleepiness appears. The body becomes sluggish. Later, when bedtime arrives, sleep may feel shallow, interrupted, or delayed. Then the next morning begins with heaviness, dryness, fatigue, and a blood sugar reading that seems unfair. This pattern repeats until it feels normal, even though the body has been under strain for a long time. So the first step is not punishment. It is understanding. Why does dinner affect the next morning so strongly? First, evening is a lower activity window. Even if you do not exercise formally during the day, simple daily movement still helps the body use what you eat. In the evening, especially after dinner, many people sit for long periods. The body then has fewer ways to handle the incoming fuel efficiently. Second, sleep quality is deeply connected to blood sugar stability. A heavy late meal can make rest less restorative. Poor sleep can then make appetite and metabolic control worse the following day. Third, evening habits tend to cluster together. A large dinner may lead to inactivity, then screen exposure, then delayed sleep, then a rough morning. That chain matters more than people realize. This is why changing dinner can be more effective than making random changes all day. You do not need a perfect diet from morning to night in order to begin seeing improvement, but you do need a better evening structure. The goal is not to create a joyless plate. It is to build a dinner that leaves the body feeling calmer, lighter, steadier, and better prepared for sleep and recovery. A practical dinner begins with 3 principles. The first is to reduce the speed and amount of carbohydrates at night. This does not mean removing them completely. It means being more selective. Instead of making refined starch, the center of the plate, shift to a smaller portion and choose a form that feels steadier and more satisfying. Mixed grains, barley, oats, pumpkin, or a modest serving of rice alongside other foods can work better than a large bowl of plain white rice. The second principle is to make sure protein is present. If dinner is mostly starch and very little protein, satisfaction drops and late hunger becomes more likely. Protein can help the meal feel more complete and reduce the sense that something is missing. Tofu, eggs, fish, beans, chicken, and other simple protein foods can all play this role. The third principle is to give vegetables a larger place than most. People are used to vegetables slow the pace of the meal, improve fullness, and make it easier to avoid overeating. The foods that affect blood sugar more sharply. When vegetables become the base of the meal, instead of an afterthought, dinner changes character. One simple way to picture dinner is to imagine the plate divided into sections. Let the largest part be vegetables, a solid portion be protein, and the smallest part be starch. This mental image alone can change the way food is served. Instead of beginning with rice and filling the rest of the space around it, you begin with vegetables and protein, then add a small portion of carbohydrates. This is not just a visual trick. It changes how much you eat, how fast you eat, and how your body experiences the meal. Many people discover that they do not actually need as much starch at night as they assumed, once the rest of the meal becomes more satisfying. Another important idea is that blood sugar support is not the same as deprivation. Some people become so afraid of rising sugar that they try to eliminate all carbohydrates or eat too little overall. That approach may work for a short period, but it can be difficult to sustain and may lead to stronger cravings, fatigue, irritability, or rebound overeating. A calmer and more reliable strategy is balance. The body needs nourishment. What it needs less of is overload, especially late in the day. Blood sugar tends to improve more reliably, with a pattern the body can trust than with extreme restriction. That breaks down after a few days. Now consider foods that support a steadier evening meal. Fermented soybean foods can be useful because they combine satisfaction, protein, depth of flavor, and a traditional place at the table that makes them easy to continue over time. Instead of depending only on salty stews or heavy dishes, these foods can be worked into lighter meals in simple ways. Tofu with fermented soybean seasoning, soft soybean-based side dishes, or modest portions paired with vegetables can create a balanced dinner without feeling like diet food. The main idea is not to chase a miracle ingredient, but to choose foods that help the body feel settled and reduce the urge to keep eating after the meal is over. Sea vegetables can also be a quiet strength in the evening. They are familiar, gentle, and easy to include. A bowl of seaweed soup made lightly, seaweed served as a side dish, or broth, with soft vegetables can help create a dinner that feels warm and complete without being too heavy. The evening meal does not need to be exciting in an intense way. It needs to be comforting without burden. Foods that are soft, balanced, and not overly salty or greasy often help the body transition toward rest more smoothly. Whole grains, such as barley and oats, can help move dinner away from the sharp rise and fall that refined starch can create. Many people do not need to abandon rice entirely. They only need to change the ratio. Even a small amount of barley or oats mixed into a meal can change texture, pace, and fullness. The goal is progress, not perfection. If a full change feels overwhelming, make a partial one. The body often responds to steady, modest changes more favorably than to dramatic changes that are hard to maintain. Timing matters too. Even a good dinner becomes less helpful if it is eaten too late. The later the meal, the less time the body has to process it before sleep. A late dinner followed by lying down soon afterward is one of the most common patterns behind poor sleep. Heavy mornings and unstable fasting numbers. If possible, finish dinner early enough to allow your body a gentle transition before bed. Not everyone can eat at the same hour, but in general, earlier is easier on the body than later. If dinner must be late, keep it lighter and simpler. Reduce the starch portion, avoid overeating, and focus on foods that do not leave you feeling stuffed. What happens after dinner is just as important as what happens on the plate. The easiest helpful habit is light movement. This does not require a gym, exercise clothes, or a complicated plan. A slow walk in the hallway, around the house, outside for a short distance, or even standing and moving, gently can be enough to change how the body handles the meal. Sitting immediately after dinner for a long stretch often worsens heaviness and sluggishness. A short period of movement signals the body to use rather than simply store. It can also reduce post-meal sleepiness and make the evening feel more refreshed. The next part of the evening is sleep preparation. Blood sugar control is not only about food and exercise. Recovery matters. Sleep is one of the main times the body repairs, regulates, and resets. If evenings are bright, noisy, stressful, and overstimulating, the body struggles to make that transition. For many people, a very small routine before bed can help. Lower the lights, reduce screens, sit quietly, warm the feet, breathe slowly. Write down a few thoughts of gratitude. Listen to soft music. None of these are dramatic, but together they change the emotional tone of the night. When the nervous system is calmer, the body rests better. When rest improves, morning appetite, Energy and blood sugar often become easier to manage. Many people believe health changes require grand discipline and radical rules. In reality, the body often changes through small, repeatable actions. A slightly smaller bowl of rice, one more serving of vegetables, a dependable protein choice, 10 or 15 minutes of walking after dinner, a quieter final hour before sleep. These actions seem modest, but repeated every day, they can shift the entire direction of your health. Blood sugar does not usually become unstable overnight, and recovery does not usually happen overnight either. But the body notices patterns. It remembers what happens night after night. This is especially important for people whose numbers are not yet extremely high, but are slowly worsening. That stage may feel uncertain because symptoms can be mild, yet it is often the best time to act. When changes are made earlier, the body may respond more quickly and more kindly. Waiting until the numbers become severe often means the process is harder and more stressful. So rather than asking, what is the fastest way to lower my number, it may be more helpful to ask, what evening pattern can I maintain for a long time? That question leads to sustainable progress. You do not need to fear dinner. You need to reshape it. Dinner is not the enemy. It is an opportunity. It can either push the body into a night of heaviness, poor sleep, and rough mornings, or it can become the meal that brings stability, comfort, and recovery. When dinner changes, nights change. When nights change, mornings change. And when mornings change, the whole day begins to feel more manageable. So start simply. Make tonight's dinner a little lighter than yesterday's. Place vegetables first. Add a calm protein source. Reduce the refined starch. Eat a little earlier if possible. Move after the meal. Protect the final hour before sleep. Do not demand perfection from yourself. Consistency matters more than intensity. A better evening repeated many times is far more powerful than a perfect evening done once. The body is always responding. It is never ignoring what you do. Every meal sends a message. Every evening routine teaches the body what to expect. If you have been worried by your rising numbers, take that worry and turn it into a gentle, structured response. Not panic, not punishment. Direction. With time, direction becomes momentum. Momentum becomes a new normal, and that new normal can feel calmer, clearer, lighter, and far more hopeful than the path you were on before. Tonight can be the beginning. Not because one dinner will solve everything, but because one dinner can begin a pattern, and patterns change lives. A steadier plate, a steadier night, a steadier morning. That is how improvement often begins. Quietly, repeatedly, and much more powerfully than it first appears.